Diamond, Diamond.
A precious gem of the most valuable kind. When pure, it is clear.
Diamond, Diamond.
A family name bringing traditions of love, hard work, and moral values.
This is the Diamond Education Podcast with my mom and dad, Jon and Kellee, England.
Welcome to the Diamond Education Podcast with Jon and Kellee, England, your hosts. We're here to help you find the most valuable education for your child.
Yeah, and today we're actually going to be kind of talking about something a little bit different. One of the things that we don't want to do is come across as if we have all the answers, because learning how to find the best fit for your child, I think, is a journey. And so today we're really going to be discussing, what do you do when you feel like you don't know what to do for a child? And that's honestly where we're at right now with one of our children. And so some of that kind of plays into kind of some of the history of how we've even come on this journey to where we're podcasting about it too, right? This child, we love her to death, but, we started her out in a public school for a few years, and then we took her to a charter school for a few years, and and those were okay, but they weren't a great fit. And then we went back to a public school for a little while. Then we've started homeschooling her a little bit, and
She did part public, part homeschool.
Yep, we did part public, part homeschool. We've done online school a little bit. We tried a micro school for a little while. Like, there's a lot of things that we've tried for this child. And I think one of those things that we need to discuss is, I think, how, as parents, I think it's okay to try something different. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I think it's okay to change quite a bit for them too. Before we really got into homeschooling and everything, we thought the system should work for everyone, right? The public system. And we discovered with her, it wasn't working. She wasn't really learning by being forced to do things and turn in things. In fact, she got farther behind, but I think we've discovered with her, which is a hard concept, because I am very much an organized, in my mind, like, this is how it needs to be and stuff, things like that it's kind of hard to be like, no, my child is different than me.
Yeah.
And they have a different mission in this life, and they have a unique mission, I would say.
Yeah. And I think it's hard to, and I fight with this too, of the maybe mindset and expectations that I had, especially coming out of the public school system, of, what I want her to be doing versus what she wants to be doing, which really, and I think this is where we got into our conversation with Kerry McDonald about unschooling and things like that, of how do we, as parents, let go? And I think that's the question that we're at right now, of what do we need to do to let go as parents and let her take control of her life?
Yeah. Because I think, the problem with what I'm doing is I have expectations on what you should know, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that child's not necessarily interested, which doesn't mean that child's failing, because they aren't. She has a job she loves and is learning there. She's actually pursuing a profession that she loves and is succeeding at. But in my mind, I think no, you need to do this, and this too. And where it's like, no, that's important to me, but not be important to that child.
Yeah.
So
it was interesting. So I think one of the things that I've learned in the last little while too is that, sometimes I get the feeling, because of my expectations, that, there's no dreams of the future for this child. But I'm wrong, actually, on this. It's, as I had a long conversation with her just recently, actually, about, what do you see yourself in 5 years? And she has a plan of what she wants to do. And now the hard part for me as a dad is, how do I step back and let her do that, right?
Yeah.
And I think we're both kind of going through that, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe you can describe some of the pains that you've gone through, or I can describe
Well,
it to you.
like it was interesting because sometimes you tend to think it's all the other person, right? Like,
Yeah.
but this week I had an awakening where I was like, no, I'm the problem. Because this child was supposed to take an exam, and I was in there and thought, well, I'll get her started. And then all of a sudden I was controlling how it was going and the test taking and making sure. And she was just kind of like, well, mom, and then I finally was like, oh my goodness, she's got this. I need to step back and let her figure it out. Like I need to, I don't know, in the scripture, we're agents unto ourselves. And as hard as that is as a parent, like you want to solve it for them. And I mean, I feel bad. This child is our what do we call it? Our experiment, because she's the oldest. And so I feel bad for her because
she gets all of our growing pains as parents where we need to learn and grow. And she gets to experience that first. And so when we come to other children, we've at least been through the process before. And so it maybe goes a little easier. I don't know. I'm sure other parents have felt that way about their first child as well, about how, there's lots of mistakes to be made in parenting.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because I kept saying, well, my mom didn't do that. And I was, but I'm like, I was the youngest.
And you know what? That's the same thing actually too, because I've been like, I had to do, like, I got myself to do this, and this. I'm like, but I'm actually kind of the youngest too. Like I'm not quite the youngest, but I'm the second youngest in my family.
I guess we should ask our older siblings if
of what it was
more
like.
Was demanded out of them. But
I'm sure they would say it was. I know that my siblings have sometimes called me the golden child because I could do no wrong. But I think what it is as a parent, you get to a point where you realize that certain things really don't matter.
Yeah.
And so you're able to step back and just like let them experience and learn.
Well, wouldn't you say with our children? Like,
yeah. It's been a lot.
With our oldest, it's like a new experience. But the others, I'm like, oh, it'll be fine. Like, So it's that hard, and I wouldn't say, because I mean, you hear stories from multiple parents that it could be the middle child or but what I'm grateful is I love this child to death. She has a lot on, she's a good kid, got a lot on the ball, and she's very strong-willed. And so, and I need to I think she needs that strong will too. So it's.
Well, and I think there's definitely been times in her life where that strong will, and that sense of, no, this is the right thing to do, has actually served her well.
Yeah.
And I fear that I do this, but I don't want to suppress that from her, because I think the world needs somebody who's willing to stand up and be like, no, this is wrong.
Yeah. Well, remember her teaching herself how to ride her bike? Yeah. She didn't want our help.
Well, and she's like, I can do this myself. I don't need you. And she taught herself how to ride a bike, which was amazing.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and she's always bloomed when she's ready. But sometimes I think in our mind, I think we let the outer expectations of the world worry us too. Like what others will think, or where it's like, I'm doing the best I can and that's enough. And this child is learning and growing and that's enough. And that might not be important to her right now, but
I do know. But no, I agree with what you're saying there, because I mean, you and I have had lots of conversations, obviously not on a podcast, about what do we do going forward? How do we help her reach her full potential? Because I mean, really, that's our job as parents, right?
And to make it clear, it's not like we just have these conversations about her.
Right. No.
It's every kid we were. Yeah. She's just the example at the moment.
Yeah. She's the one that's on our mind recently.
Yeah.
And I think it's an important thing for us to think about. I mean, we've both recently read the book Passion Driven Education, which really talks about like allowing the child to have a passion, and then you teach through that, right?
Well, and then having Kerry McDonald on the show, who's a big advocate
proponent of.
for unschooling, and just having those ideas recently.
Yeah.
I mean, and getting used to getting our mindset out of what it should look like too.
Yeah.
So,
I guess sometimes that's really the problem, is that sometimes we allow our mindset and our experience. Andrew Pudewa even said it's hard not to do to your child what was done to you, right? And so,
well, and I would even flip that on the head too, of saying to expect your child to do things you didn't do too,
or to even expect them to do things the exact same way that you did,
or
right?
even better,
or even better. Yeah.
and so, I mean, there's a lot to that. And
Mhm.
so it's just, I guess I'm finding in all of this, all that matters is what God wants for each of us,
Yeah.
and that we are agents to ourselves and doing it with God.
I agree.
And I have to remind myself of that quite a bit.
Yeah.
So,
And I think that actually comes back to the idea of what I've learned about education, actually doing 20 podcasts so far, starting back in August and doing about half a year's worth of podcasts, is that we are, the word education comes from Latin educare. And I've said this multiple times on the podcast, but that idea of drawing out them, and then, we add our religious belief on there of drawing out a remembrance of who they were and who God wants them to be, is our purpose there. Whereas, the word instruction is more actually about kind of putting in, right? And so, yes, we can instruct, but education is more about drawing out their talents. Because I guess here's the other thing is, do we want a society where everybody does the exact same thing all of the time? Like, that doesn't sound like very much fun, I guess.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, some of the best conversations I have are with people who have differing points of view, because it means you're talking about something that matters and you're able to gain understanding and learning. And so, how do you help your child who maybe has a different point of view, help them to bloom and grow and do those things?
Yeah. Well, and to add on to that too is forcing to learn hurts the relationship more too.
Yeah.
Forcing because all it ends is in battles, and you might need to step back.
Yeah. Yeah.
For a few weeks, a month, a year.
Yeah.
And
well, and honestly, in Kerry McDonald's book, Unschooled, she says you need about a month of unschooling for every year of school that your child has been in.
Yeah.
And that process actually is important for parents too.
Yeah.
And so, and that's a hard thing to wrap my mind around.
Yeah.
Of not pushing certain aspects of learning. And so I think that's the journey that we're starting, though, is this idea of right now, again, this being about finding the best education for our child, right? That's why we're doing this podcast, is helping people to find that. And so even for us, we need to, for this child, and maybe not all of our children, but for this child specifically, we need to step back and allow her to learn at her own pace and what she wants to when she's ready,
and even trust herself in the learning process,
and for her to learn to trust herself and to gain that love and curiosity of things that are,
because honestly
happening.
With the nail tech, she's doing it, so
and she loves it.
And I guess in all of this too is our next child is different. And then our third child, she just wants to be with friends all day. And
anybody who has more than one child definitely knows that no two children are the same.
Absolutely.
Even if you have twins. And so I think that's something important. So I just I think we should that's what we wanted to talk about today, and let people know, like, we're not perfect parents. I don't think anybody who tries to say that they are actually is. And there's this aspect of learning and teaching that the parents have to go through as well.
we're not perfect at it. We're learning how to be parents.
Yeah.
And there's a higher power, our God there, that's helping us learn how to be that and helping our kids. And I guess I would just want to end with that. They're each children of God and so valuable. And they each have a mission and lessons they're supposed to learn and talents to add to this world. And so grateful for that. And I have to remind myself that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, should we end with something we've learned about history, since we always ask about our heroes from history, but we've already shared? So I'm gonna drop it on you first. What's something you've learned about history?
So our cute kids last year for Christmas gave me a book of Why We Fought, and it's different people all over the world and how they were heroes in certain wars. But there's one I read today. It was telling Jon, his name was Karl Lutz, and he was a consul for the Switzerland in Hungary. And he saved 72,000 Jews by kind of not obeying the Swiss government by issuing these protections to get the Jews out. They had a certain name, I can't remember, but he was able to issue, and the Swiss government only gave him a certain amount that he was supposed to do, and he just went with it and gave over that amount. And everyone, these people, he was a loved man, like just a good man, and he risked his life many times by standing in front of like Nazis who were going to kill these Jews and everything. But the one statement he said, because his government later, he had to go before a court, they were trying to charge him basically with breaking their laws. Yeah. And the judge actually took Karl Lutz's, L-U-T-Z, Lutz's position on saying this is a hero, and kind of reprimanded his authority figures and let him off. And later Karl Lutz said that basically the higher laws are better than man-made laws. So like basically we should follow the higher law over man-made laws.
That's awesome.
So it was a cool story to, even though there's a law, if it's not moral, should we follow it? So
that's a really, really good one. And now I'm going to stump myself on my own question, because I'm trying to remember like what I've been learning about history lately. I don't have anything.
I'm going to ask you, because you have been really into the book called The One Thing.
I have been.
Tell me what you love about that book.
So that's actually, and I really have been enjoying that book, because, I think a lot of us in the world, like we get going and we get really busy doing a lot of things. Stephen Covey says it, we're getting into the thick of thin things, where we just, we got this little thing and this little thing and this little thing, but like we're not really focusing on the bigger picture and doing the things that will help us accomplish what really our ultimate goal is. And that's what I've loved about it, is it really is helping us. You want to be like extremely successful, find out what your one thing is that you love. And then you find out, okay, what's the one thing I need to do right now that will make everything else easier or unnecessary. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I've just really loved about that book, is it's really focused me, I think, on what it is that I want to accomplish. Mm-hmm. We talk about, our children finding their mission in life. And this book is helping me to really focus on what my mission is.
I love it.
And so
it's been fun hearing you talk about it.
Yeah, I've loved it. So, and a lot of books are supporting that too. But that's our podcast for the day. Thank you guys for listening. We hope that you will subscribe. And if you're on Apple podcast, make sure that you give a nice 5-star review so that other people can find our podcast easily too. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Diamond Education Podcast.
You can connect with us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook
at Diamond Education, DIMOND. or on our website, diamonded.com.